want to bring in Anita Kumar, a White House correspondent for McClatchy. Anita, hello. How will this immigration proposal play towards President Trump's base? Let's talk about the politics.
Right. I mean, it will definitely be something they support. You know, a lot of, as Chip mentioned, a lot of talk during the campaign was about illegal immigration. That got the most attention. But this is something President Trump supported way before he was president. This is one of the first things he talked about on the campaign trail, what he calls the merit-based system. And it has been credited for giving him some votes in key states, rural states with white working class voters. And so I think it will play very well. But as Chip said, it's unclear how far it'll go.
Okay, President Trump also signed today a major piece of legislation putting new sanctions on Russia, Iran, and North Korea. It, of course, passed in Congress with overwhelming support, but it took several days before the president finally signed it today. How much of a choice did the president really have?
Well, he didn't really have a choice. I mean, he had indicated, the White House had indicated for a number of days that he was going to sign it, so it wasn't surprising. But the House and Senate passed this bill so overwhelmingly, it was veto-proof. So he, even if he had vetoed it, and there was talk about him doing that, they would have, they would have been fine with that. They could have gotten it through. And the thing is, no president wants to have their veto overruled there, and so that wouldn't have been a good thing for him. But the statement he issued with was unbelievable, really. I mean, it was a very, very strong statement that made it clear he does not like this bill and pieces of the bill. I believe he called it flawed.
Yeah, he called it
flawed.
Significantly flawed. And he also said, Anita, that it had unconstitutional provisions. Of course, what we know about this sanctions law is that it limited his power to just get rid of sanctions, to sign away sanctions. What does this say, though, this statement about how the executive branch will interpret this law?
Well, I mean, they're definitely put that in there for a reason. So it's possible he could dispute it later. He's saying parts of that law aren't valid. But he did sign it, and he said he signed it for national unity, which was an interesting way to say that. He has said that he would abide by. The thing that he's really quibbling with, he's mentioned several things, is that he thinks it chips away at the executive branch. He says in his statement that he was and still is, a businessman. He made millions of dollars. He knows how to negotiate, and he can negotiate better with foreign countries than Congress can, and he shouldn't have that taken away. And basically what the law says, the bill says, is that he can't negotiate. Congress has to be in charge of these sanctions. He can't take them away.
All right. Meanwhile, Senate Republicans say they plan to take up tax reform when they return from their August recess. And one of your colleagues wrote, "The conservatives' power of no stifles the Republican agenda." How much harder will tax reform be without having reformed Obamacare?
I think it's all going to be hard. I mean, it's going to be hard because we still have the same problems that thwarted health care as we do on tax reform. Number one, the Republican Party is very split. They're split about this as well. And number two, we did not see any change, or we haven't seen one yet, since this went down on Friday in the middle of the night. We haven't seen the White House sort of say, here's what we should do differently. And some lawmakers, some senators were saying that the White House should have been more involved, should have been out there negotiating, that President Trump should have been around the country, as President Obama used to do, and try to sell this plan. So nothing's changed. It's not really an issue of we didn't get through Obamacare, so now we can't do tax reform. To me, all the problems that they have with them being a fractured party remain the same.
All right, but the president is still pushing for a health care repeal. Is anyone on Capitol Hill listening?
Well, so they're all over the map on this. I mean, you are correct in that they went home for their August recess, and their talking points that they've been given to talk about at town halls is, let's talk about tax reform. Let's talk about the big things that we have done this year, and really not so much about health care. But there are a number of Democrats who are pushing to start negotiating again from scratch, a bipartisan deal. And there are actually some Republicans who are saying, let's do this too. The question is how fast will that work, and whether the Senate and House leaders get on board with that.
Okay, finally, there's the continuing Russia investigation and questions remaining about what the president knew and when. The White House is now saying the president did weigh in on drafting Trump Jr.'s misleading statement about his meeting with that Russian attorney that, of course, contradicted Trump's own lawyer. But what do you make of the contradicting messages, and which one should the public believe?
Well, I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary, was quite clear yesterday in that the president did have a hand. She used very specific words that said, you know, he didn't draft it, he didn't dictate what it should say, he just was involved as any father would be. I mean, what I take from that is clearly after the Washington Post reported that, using several sources, that he was involved, they had to kind of say that he was involved. Usually, though, you sort of wall off the president. You don't have him get involved in things like this so that later he doesn't have to deal with legal issues. But he was involved, and now that has gone back to his attorney, who said a couple weeks ago that he wasn't involved. So there is that contradiction. It's clear that either President Trump didn't tell his attorney the truth, or his attorney didn't tell the American public the truth.
All right, once you get past sort of the miscommunications here, or right hand not talking to left hand, what is the actual real fallout from that report, specifically when it comes to Special Counsel Mueller's investigation?
Well, so as I said, it's generally try to wall off the president. He didn't have any, so you can say that he didn't have any part of this, but he did have a part of it. They've now admitted that he had a part of it. And people are saying that this could expose him to some kind of legal jeopardy. So they'll have to examine what he did know, what he knew about the meeting, what he knew about the statement, and whether he was trying to, obstruct justice or just cover up what really was going on. So this is actually a really significant development in the case.
Anita Kumar, thanks so much, Anita.
Sure, thank you.